Hey, let's review your MT5 final affirmation. We start with question 1 here. You started it off correctly. That is, you took 5 and you replaced it with you. So we get 1 plus 7 times 5 is less than negative 20. 1 plus 35 is less than negative 20. I don't know why you subtracted 1, but that's actually okay. What I do have a huge problem is, where does u come from? U is 5. You should have stopped with 35 being less than negative 21. Is that true? No, it's not. And I think you might have had that selected too. And then if we take a look at the second one, I think it's the same mistake all the time. You kept on putting u back in the problem. Is negative 7 less than negative 21? No, it's further to the right on the number line. The next one is negative 28 less than negative 21. No, that one is, because it's further to the left on the number line. And your last one, if we went to put that u in, you would have had negative 21 less than negative 21. Negative 21 is not less than negative 21, so that answer is no also. I think it might have been easier on this one if we would have just solved it straight up. That is, subtract 1 from both sides, and we get 7u is less than negative 21. Divide both sides by 7. U is less than negative 3. Then put your numbers in. Is 5 less than negative 3? No. Is negative 1 less than negative 3? No. Is negative 4 less than negative 3? Yes. And finally, is negative 3 less than negative 3? No. I think that doing it that way might have been a lot easier than the way you did it. We're going to graph this inequality. I think you were thinking it was an absolute value or something. All you had to do is negative 7, open circle, because it doesn't include negative 7, we're going to graph to the left. You had like positive 7 on your answer. I don't know what you were doing there. Next question. Isn't the problem with inequalities? The problem is you still don't know what this word means. We should know the word sum by now. We're in the 5th chapter. Sum is the answer to an addition problem. So it says the sum of 4 and c, so 4 plus c, is greater than or equal to, you had that part right, and you had the 16 right. But you have to know what the word sum is by this time in the class. Sum is the answer to an addition problem. What you did was product. Product is the answer to a multiplication problem. Might as well go over the others too in case you see them. Difference is the answer to a subtraction problem. And quotient is the answer to a division problem. You must know these words by now. You've got to memorize them. If we take a look at the next question, it says Deborah runs each lap in 5 minutes. She will run less than, I'm going to highlight, less than 35 minutes today. What are the possible number of laps she will run today? Now, if we think, if she runs 1 lap, let's make a table here. So lap and time. If she runs 1 lap, how long is it going to take her? It's going to take her 5 minutes. How if she runs 2 laps? Well, 2 laps would be 5 plus 5 is 10. 3 laps would be 15. Do you see the pattern here? How about you did 10 laps? What would you say? Hopefully you said 50 minutes. How about n laps? N laps would be, well, we're going to take each lap, we're going to multiply it by 5. So in other words, we're going to say 5n is less than 35. I think you had a plus sign here. Divide both sides by 5. You should have typed in n is less than 7. Here we have some really good work. You got a couple little mistakes we need to talk about, but you did most of it right. First thing you do is you multiply both sides by 9. You get negative 72. You do divide both sides by negative 10, but if you divide by a negative, you got to switch the sign. So x is greater than negative 72 divided by negative 10. First, what's a negative divided by a negative? It's a positive. So if you divide the numerator and denominator by 2, it looks like what you did. You should have got x is less than 36 over 5. So just to clear that up, you should have typed in x is greater than 36 over 5. You had x is less than negative 36 over negative 5. Well, that's not simplified. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. Okay, on this question, it's backwards. We want to write the inequality. Notice it's filled in. So we're going to have a line. So I'm going to use they want to use x for a variable. So we're going to say x. Now, which way did you shade? We shaded to the left. So your inequality should point to the left. X is less than or equal to 1. I think you had x is greater than or equal to 1. So you understood what the closed circle means, but you got the shading backwards. Okay, on this one, you've kind of got the work, but you didn't do what you're asked. It's just Tony wants to earn at least. So number one, we have an inequality. It says at least $21 trimming trees. He charges $6 for every hour and $9 for an equipment fee. In other words, he charges $9 no matter what. What are the possible number of hours Tony could trim trees? Well, use T for your hours. So we're going to say 6 times T, because he's going to be paid $6 per hour. Plus, we have the equipment fee. And then he's going to make at least. At least means greater than or equal to 21. So you're actually on the right track, but you didn't answer the question. So I like what you did here. T would be 2, wouldn't it? Because I see 1 hour. Let me write that in. 1 hour, 2 hours, and you add 9, you get $21. So T should be greater than or equal to 2. So he's got to work at least 2 hours to make $21. He could earn more money if he works more than 2 hours, but that's all we had to do. Like I said, you're kind of on the right track there, but you didn't write your answer as an inequality. If we take a look at these two problems, let's start with part A. Negative 5, distribute. You did distribute that right. Negative 5u minus 15 plus 32. Negative 15 plus 32 is 17. I like that. You distribute 5 to the parentheses on the right. You get 20 minus 5u. I like what you're doing there. Minus 17 from both sides. So you get negative 5u is greater than 3 minus 5u. You do not divide by negative 5. The opposite of subtracting is adding. So let's go from there. We should have had negative 5u is greater than 3 minus 5u. I'll start with what you had right there. Now we're going to add 5u to both sides because the opposite of subtracting is adding. And notice 5u minus 5u, that's 0. Is 0 greater than negative 3? No, it's not. Since that is false, we're going to say no solution. Let's take a look at part B. And once again, we started off right. You distribute it, and you get 12w plus 32 is less than or equal to 10w plus 14. You minus 32 from both sides, you get negative 18. You made the same mistake. You do not divide by 10w. If you divide by 10w, you're going to get 1. And then 12w divided by 10w is not 12. I don't know what you're doing there. Let me rewrite the part you had wrong and go from there. So we had 12w is less than or equal to 10w minus 18. So what happens is we get rid of the 10w not by dividing, but by moving it. So we're going to subtract 10w from both sides. You're going to move the whole thing to the other side of the inequality. At that point, we get 2w, because 12 minus 10 is 2, is less than or equal to negative 18. Now divide by 2. When you want to get the variable by itself and you got a coefficient in front of it, that's what we do. So the 2's reduce and you get w is less than or equal to negative 9. So on that one, whoops, didn't mean to do that. I wanted to move it back up here. So we should have selected the one with w is less than or equal to, and then we should have filled in negative 9. And there's that problem. Okay, let's take a look at problem number 9. Kind of similar. So we take and we distribute the negative inside, and you distribute that correctly. Negative 12 plus 16y. You decided to add 26 to both sides. That works. So you get 14. No, 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 no. Do not divide by 9. You got to get all the variables on the same side before you do that. And if you do divide by 9, you have to divide the 14 by 9 also. And then you get something kind of ugly. Let's get all the variables on one side first. So we get 9, whoops, made that too thin. So I'm going to start with what you had correct. The last line that was correct was 9y is less than 14 plus 16y. Get all the variables on the same side first. So we subtract 16y from both sides. 9 minus 16, that'll be negative 7y, is less than 14. At this point, we're going to divide both sides by negative 7. Remember, when you divide by a negative, you got to flip the inequality. So we get y, 14 divided by negative 7 is greater than negative 2. Remember, get all the variables on the same side before you divide. Okay, this question. This is not an and question like you had. It's an or question because notice it goes in two different directions. It's actually two inequalities on the same number line. The first one is x is less than or equal to negative 2 because you're going to the left, so it's left then. Or x is greater than 0. That's it. On this question, you didn't do what it said. I want you to write an absolute value inequality. You just wrote an inequality. When we do an absolute value inequality, first off, notice we're shading between. Since we're shading between, that's going to be a less than sign. Notice they're filled in, so I'm going to say less than or equal to. So I'm going to write my absolute value over here on the left. Now you look at what number is halfway between 6 and negative 6. Well, if I go 6 plus negative 6, and they divide that by 2, well, that's 0 divided by 2, which is 0, isn't it? So I'm going to say x minus 0. That's the middle. Now, how far is 0 from either endpoint? Well, from 0 to 6, it's 6. It's also 0 to negative 6 is also 6, but if we're talking absolute value, distance is positive. Now, a lot of times, instead of saying x minus 0, we'll just write the absolute value of x, which is less than or equal to 6. If you had any other number, you couldn't do that, but that's all we have to do on that one. Okay, notice what I did here. You have half the problem right with absolute value, because you are right. If we have the absolute value of u plus 7 is less than or equal to 3, that means u plus 7 is indeed less than or equal to 3. But it's also in between negative 3 and 3, because we're saying, hey, what distance is 3 away from 0? Well, the two numbers that are 3 away from 0 are negative 3 and 3. So that's why we write that. So it's in, and is in between, so less than what we talked about in the seminar. Well, now, what do you do to solve for u? Well, I wanted to get rid of the 7. So I'm going to subtract 7. Now, there's a left, so I'm going to subtract 7 from the left, a middle, and a right. So I'm going to subtract 7 from all three sides. So negative 3 minus 7 is negative 10, which is less than or equal to u, which is less than or equal to 3 minus 7, which is negative 4. You could have written this problem also as, like you did, u plus 7 is less than or equal to 3, and u plus 7 is greater than or equal to negative 3. If you want to do it that way, if you find that way easy to work with, you can. I just like to put my absolute value between my two values and then solve. But you can do it however you want, as long as you do it correctly. Okay, this question. Caitlin's final exam has true-false questions worth 2 points each and multiple choice questions worth 5 points each. Let x be the number of true-false questions. So I'm going to highlight my x are my true-false questions. Okay? And they're 2 points each. Y is going to be my multiple choice questions. And they're 5 points each. She needs at least 85 points on the exam to get an A in the class. Use these values in the variables to write an inequality. The key word on this one is at least for our inequality. Well, let's start here by writing out our terms. So true-false questions are 2 points each, so I'm going to say 2x. Multiple choice questions are worth 5 points each, 5y. At least means she's got to get that grade or higher, so it's greater than or equal to 85. And that's what you do on that one. There's nothing to solve because we have two variables, so just leave it like it is. For some reason, I think you thought this problem was a vertical line or a horizontal line, but it's not. The y-intercept is 2, so we go up 2. Think you had that part right. The slope is negative 3. As in negative 3 over 1. So we're going to go down 3 to the right 1. I could do that forever. It's a solid line, so I'm going to draw a solid line going through these points. It's less than, so I shade vertically down from that graph. So I'm going to go down on my graph. And that's what it should have been. The last question, you forgot to shade. I'm thinking that was a careless error. So we should have been up 6 with a dashed line. And my graph is too small, isn't it? Because it only goes up to 5. So here's 6. And then I wanted you to shade below that. You had the dashed line correct. You had the horizontal line correct. You just didn't have the shading, which I'm guessing was careless because I'm thinking you knew that. Okay, at this point, I want you to go back into Alex, find your test, and redo it. And re-upload your new work to Schoology once you're done.